Club today, we have PHNX host Johnny Venerable going to stop by in segment number 2 to break down the Jaguars' Week 12 showdown in the desert with the Arizona, not the PHNX Cardinals, although he does work for PHNX. You guys are going to love this breakdown. One of the most thorough we've had from, I guess it's, what do we say, scouting enemy lines, something like that. You guys will enjoy my conversation with Johnny. We taped that this morning. So we're going to time travel a little bit too. But first things first, going to empty the notebook following a dominant 35-6 victory for the Big Cats. Let's dive into it because Club 904 is going up on a Tuesday. DJ Dell says you can find me in the club. That's where you can find me as well. Mia O'Brien, excited to be bringing you yet another edition of Club 904, syndicated on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel. And for those of you who are tuned into Action Sports Jacks 24/7, you get a double dose of me because I'll also be co-hosting Talent Talks with Richard Miller coming up at 2 p.m. Maybe for some of you, that's a cue to get away. But that's all right. For the most of you, I think if you're locked in on this episode, you will stick around to hear about the Ospreys in addition to the hometown Jacksonville Jaguars. As always, make sure you subscribe to the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channels. If you're looking for more of my reporting, you can head on over to the O'Brien NFL Notebook. The URL for it is scrolling across the bottom line. You also can head on over to my Twitter page. If you're not watching this episode live on my Twitter feed, you can head on over to @MiaO'BrienTV on X. Go to that pin tweet, go to the second reply in the tweet replies, right? I think that's what we still call it. And you'll find the link that you can sign up for a free 7-day trial of the O'Brien NFL Notebook, as well as $5 per month memberships that start for standard scoopers. Now that we've got that housekeeping out of the way, as I alluded to off the top, Johnny Venerable going to join us. Second segment, so probably around 1:20-ish if you want to plan accordingly. We did tape that conversation this morning as Johnny's got plenty to do out in the Arizona area in covering the Cardinals. There's a lot going on out there, and it is not all good. We commiserated about covering some dysfunctional teams, but also a team like the Cardinals, where it sure as heck feels like the quarterback will be the scapegoat when all is said and done. But will that actually solve the problems? The good news is the Jaguars didn't really have quarterback issues outside of perhaps 2 plays on Sunday and their 35-6 win over the LA Chargers. We haven't done it in a couple of weeks, and it's after a dominant, resounding victory. So we're going to empty the notebook a little bit, my live notes from during the game, and then kind of decipher through them, literally, because my handwriting is not the best, and it can be difficult at times to read, as those of you who know my handwriting know very well. But ultimately, want to kind of go through back in real time those notes I took from the opening whistle all the way to the final whistle, and how now we reflect upon that with the context of some of the stats we have from this dominant victory. So let's start with this first note I took from Sunday's game up in the press box. Devin Lloyd much more active in pre-snap. And I was not in Houston, so I can't really say for certain outside of what I saw on the television broadcast how active he was at the line of scrimmage, moving around both pre-snap and post-snap, shouting out commands right alongside Foye Oluokun. I spoke with Devin afterwards, and he said he didn't feel all that different. So maybe it's one of those things that you have to be present to witness yourself. But I will say that in the context of his 4-year tenure here in Jacksonville, he hasn't always been the one who's been helping, hey, you go here, you go there, shouting out commands in terms of handing guys off, actively having those conversations with the safeties. I go back to something that Foye Oluokun said during training camp, which is, why do I have to be the eraser? How about everyone is just lined up and knows where they're supposed to be? It understands the why. And I think that this is another example of Devin Lloyd understanding why he is in a position, why he needs to hand off an opposing offensive player to a safety and have that open line of communication with him. So first note in the notebook, Devin Lloyd, who also had a couple tackles for loss in this game. I thought he looked like September Devin Lloyd, which is a welcome sight to see if you are a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The wide receiver snap count is something that I know we will be talking about and monitoring in the weeks ahead, especially with Brian Thomas Jr., as Brent Martineau of Action Sports Jacks reported, was warming up pregame on Sunday, even if he was never expected to play, as he still recovers from that ankle injury he suffered against the Las Vegas Raiders. The first 3 wide receiver set we saw on Sunday: Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, probably not a surprise for both of those 2 players to be on the field, and Austin Trammell. And then on the first running play, a designed run play in which you have the running back who is in the backfield and who is out of the I formation, Tim Patrick came on in relief of number 81, Austin Trammell. Dyami Brown, 23 total snaps. Tim Patrick, 40 plus snaps. You can equate some of that to the Jaguars running a league high 47 run plays on Sunday, including 40 in between the tackles. Tim Patrick is that pass blocking wide receiver, although all wide receivers in Liam Cohen's offense are expected to be run blockers. So just file that one away, because I think that that's going to be something that will be monitored, especially with Brian Thomas Jr. working his way back into this lineup. What role does he play? We've discussed this on the post-game show. I've discussed this on other Jaguars programs as well. I think that this behooves Brian Thomas because now he can truly just play the Z, just play the X. As I know a couple of you guys in the chat have already pointed out to us over the last 48 hours, he doesn't have to be that de facto guy over the middle of the field who in a tight spot is who is expected to move the chains. That becomes Jakobi Meyers. And I think that if Jakobi Meyers continues on this upward trajectory we've seen since he arrived in Jacksonville 14 days ago, you may have to pay that $20 million a year that he may or may not want to command when he is a free agent after this season. Because ultimately, Trevor Lawrence has been at his best when he has a wide receiver who is willing to do the dirty work and split both inside and outside. We saw it with Christian Kirk. We saw it with Marvin Jones. And now we are seeing it with Jakobi Meyers. And that's not to say that Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't have a place in this ecosystem. Dyami Brown right now, I think, is a little bit more of the one who's up in the air. I think that if anything, you'd see Brian Thomas take away some of those ex-receiver snaps. I also think that it's important to note that I think Dyami Brown still is going to be critical to this offense that wants to continue to push it down the field. And I think that's going to come back in a couple of my other notes from during this game. I really kept a sharp tally as much as I could, or at the very least, I just kept noting it. We talked last week about the addition of Ezra Cleveland back to the offensive line in the run game and what that would mean to the operation as a whole. Travis Etienne averaging over 7 yards per carry when he runs behind the left guard. And I know that that's just one stat off PFF, take it for what it's worth. But the Jaguars have run behind either that left side of the line, that much maligned left tackle position including the man who has been the left tackle for all 10 games at this point, or up the middle. And that's kind of been their MO. And some people have critiqued it and said, maybe you need to be a bit less predictable. But when you're getting the young chunk yards of the Jags are when they're running behind Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little, then I don't think you change what you're doing because it's working. And so once again, the first few run plays of the first half, pretty much up the middle or off the left side. Third down play, once again, Jakobi Meyers, Austin Trammell, Parker Washington are your wide receivers. Saw Bashal Tootin and Travis Etienne at different moments were both on the field together with Tootin split out wide. First time we've really seen that. If both running backs are on the field, whether that's in 21 personnel or a different grouping, it's Etienne who usually splits out wide. So, hey, perhaps some more confidence in Tootin's ability in the receiving game as well. I do have to read this one out loud from my notes. I'm okay with Liam passing up the field goal. He wants to show he has confidence in his quarterback. Pete Prisco will yell, take the points. He yelled, take the points with Austin Lane and JP Shadrick on Happy Hour yesterday on the Jaguars in-house channel, in case you missed it. But I stand with Liam. I understand. I respect what he's trying to do. I also understand what Pete is saying in terms of just take the points. Christian Braswell came on early in the first half after Greg Newsome goes down with a lower body injury. And so it was interesting to me because Braswell, when he was at Rutgers, played more of the slot. He can play inside or outside, depending on what regime you're talking to. They have a different assessment of where his strong points lie. Ditto to Cole Van Lanen. We'll talk about him here in just a little bit. Christian Braswell, 0 receptions allowed on 2 targets. He was on the field for 40 snaps with a team high 76.2 PFF grade. Opposite him, Buster Brown with a pair of pass breakups, although Jarian told me that one of them should have been credited to him. Jarian Jones, to his credit, played one of his best games of the season. And yes, he played in the slot. That was schematically what the thought process was, is that he matched with Ladd McConkey and basically everything from the linebacker to the perimeter, and they left those 2 guys on the outside just do their thing. And so that's where I was interested, because when Christian Braswell first came on the field, I thought I saw him shadowing McConkey, and I went, oh, wow, are they going to move Jarian to the outside? But from what I was told post-game, no. Christian Braswell played opposite Buster Brown on the outside, and there was a lot of success there. So if Greg Newsome can't go this week, which we haven't gotten an injury update yet, I'd be curious to see what the coaching staff ultimately opts to do. I also verbatim wrote down, why isn't Austin Trammell returning kicks? As soon as I wrote that down, he and LaQuint Allen teamed up for a return all the way to the 40-yard line. So keep Austin Trammell returning kicks if he is active, if he has a jersey on game day, which I think Brian Thomas Jr.'s return to the lineup might change that, again, depending on how this regime now views De'Ami Brown and his usage, knowing he doesn't play special teams. You heard Liam Cohen on Monday stress part of why he's so proud of BJ Green and Danny Strigow and Quentin Morris taking that road to the starting lineup and being an impact player on offense and defense was because they earned it through special teams. De'Ami Brown does not play special teams. Austin Trammell does. File that one away. But kickoff coverage was much, much better comparatively to the last few weeks where there were questions at times in the coverage. Still a couple of times that hit the edge, the Chargers returner, and would have liked to see a little bit more, but that's okay. Third down, 3-man front for the Jaguars defense. I felt like Josh Hines-Allen was lined up at much more of a wide 9. I actually wrote wide ass 9. And Dennis Gardick, as so many noted, was playing more over the A or the B gap, depending on what the play was. And that is something that I know from talking to people inside the building. They wanted to see more Dennis Gardick on the field. They wanted to see more Dennis Gardick as a design pass rusher in games, all up and down the line of scrimmage, and not just being a designated pass rusher right off the edge. And so the fact that it was 41, Josh Hines-Allen, who was lined up all the way on that right edge, and Dennis Gardick was inside, again, was a look that the Chargers clearly were not prepared for. And in turn, I'm curious to see now with Strigow and Green having a significant game under their belt, do you try to incorporate them into one of those two positions and how you can get creative with different bodied defensive linemen, in addition to guys like DeJuan Smoot who can go inside or outside. I noted it during the game on Twitter. I'll note it again in my notes here. Josh Hines-Allen's pass breakup, his deflection at the line was with Danny Strigow on the field. When Strigow was on the field, good things were happening, not just because he was making plays, but because guys around him were making plays. And I think that really needs to be noted as well. I also want to read this one. Another Bashal 2-in trip that Derrick Henry would have taken for 6. I love Bashal. He's from New Jersey, like me. But can we get him in a core strength class with me? Like, I'll get him some mindful motion yoga because I don't know. I think he's just excited and he moves fast. And hey, listen, had one of his best games of his career to date. And so a successful day, but we got to figure out what's up with that. Devin Lloyd, another tackle for loss, stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Water is wet. When Devin Lloyd is healthy, he's been one of the Jaguars' best players on defense. I really liked, like so many of you, and I saw this both in Jaguars Happy Hour and their Q&A, saw it, you guys, the comments on Twitter for our post-game edition of Club 904. Loved the fake left, fake right, Johnny Munt leaks up the seam play from Trevor Lawrence. But the reason I loved it, and I noted it in real time on my notes, was the patience that required from Trevor Lawrence. Bud Dupree and Khalil Mack are not Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson at this stage of their career, but still, this play in particular required the patience to allow for it to develop. And the fact that Trevor Lawrence didn't panic and look for the check down is a significant development in and of itself. I also wrote, here we go. As I was about to write, this is now from the second half. We're almost there, folks. I hope you're enjoying this live in real time reaction to my notebook from Sunday's game. And for those of you who got into the chat a little bit late, we will do Q&A at the end. We also will check in with Johnny Venerable of PHNX here in about 5-10 minutes or so. Second half. As I was about to write, quote, 1 penalty for 5 yards total, Liam had to call timeout to avoid a delay of game penalty. I completely forgot about that. That's why we empty the notebook, folks. And I think that Liam Cohen and his game management also deserve credit, even if plenty of folks would, prefer he takes the points and also calls timeouts in the final minute of a game to preserve an opportunity to potentially kick another field goal. But I digress. I think he's done a better job. I think we are taking for granted that this is a first-year head coach in his 10th ever game as a head coach. And I know he's got help up in the press box, but it's not as easy as it looks for him to be paying attention to so much, calling the offensive plays while also looking at the operation as a whole. The pass interference that was called prior to Trevor Lawrence's rushing score that he threw it to that back left corner of the end zone, similar play design to Parker Washington's touchdown against the Houston Texans. I think the PI was a little soft personally, just to give the Chargers a little bit of, I'll give you that. I'll give you grace there. But I think that what you are seeing, and the reason I bring that play up in particular, not just because it set up a touchdown, because it brought the ball to the 1-yard line, but because it is a reflection of Liam Cohen, yes, was in his bag. He was deep into the playbook, but so many of the plays that you are seeing have already been run this season. There are just small nuances and changes and options at the line of scrimmage, but it's the same basic principle. And that's where I think his offense is just so fluid. And I think that while it's difficult, as Trevor Lawrence has said time and time again, to grasp so much of that offense at the same time, I do think that's what, having those basic principles you can come back to, I would think is a little bit of a security blanket for so many on the offensive side of the ball, because you do see the parallels of, oh, we ran this play because it set up this. We ran this play against this team, but because they have this, now we're going to do this. So wanted to point that one out, as well as a couple of us in the press box did during real time on Sunday. The 3rd down, 3 safety look. A lot of folks have talked about this. We did on Sunday's postgame show as well. Antonio Johnson, Dewey Wingard, Rayon Lane, all on the field at the same time. Dennis Gardick and Foye Oluokun were the 2 linebackers in that situation. You had the 3 corners we already talked about, Jarian Jones, Buster Brown, Christian Braswell, and then a 3-man defensive front of Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines-Allen, and Eric Armstead. That was a 3rd down package for the Jaguars with those 3 safeties in the back. I thought they did a great job communicating. Spoke with a couple of them on Friday, and they were building towards it. And there were growing pains, but I think that that's where this proof of concept is going to pay off in the long run. The over communicating that we talked about with Devin Lloyd right off the top of the program, you saw that come into play here as well, especially with Lane, who people forget. I mean, he's a 6th-round rookie. Out of the Naval Academy, with all due respect to Navy, who is a great college program and may or may not have a chance at the playoff possibly this year. No, they're going to lose to, I don't know, somebody, but they won't, but that's okay. Point being, this is a guy who's at times been swimming, but he came on for his first significant defensive snaps, in my estimation, in a package designed for him. And I thought he and the rest of that group performed very, very admirably. The incomplete deep shot to Dyami Brown is where I will end this rehashing of the notebook as we empty the notebook and look past the Chargers victory and ahead to the Arizona Cardinals. That incomplete shot to Dyami Brown, number one, it's the same play that they ran in training camp, I think at least once a week during the 5-week portion of training camp. And I don't know if it ever actually was completed, at least in front of my own 2 eyes. And I was at every day of training camp. It did not get completed on Sunday. Trevor Lawrence overthrew Dyami Brown. Could he have run faster? He certainly was in conflict with the defensive back. I wrote down in real time that I thought that it actually demonstrated pretty good pocket presence from Trevor Lawrence, because he actually stepped up into the pocket. For those of you who follow Nate Tice over at Yahoo Sports, that's something that Nate talked about Trevor's rookie campaign. The idea of Trevor Lawrence not being afraid to step up in the pocket, that whole plate being set that Liam Cohen talked about when he first got here, trying to establish a strong front 3, the interior of that offensive line, so that Trevor Lawrence has the confidence to step into space and then be able to launch the ball downfield. It's something that at times he has struggled with over the last 2-3 years. Yes, because he hasn't had time, and also because I think he just looks uncomfortable. While this was a failed incompletion, I did think from Trevor's perspective, and even if you believe he overthrew Brown, I just was very encouraged by the pocket presence from 16. I know it was disappointing to see him throw another interception. I know the final passing yard tally isn't what many of you would like to see, but I am encouraged from what I saw Sunday. And to Liam Cohen's point that he made in the post game in the locker room, which is out on the Jaguars YouTube channel if you haven't seen it already, and on all of their social channels, now that the Jaguars have seen what they can do, there's no excuse. This is now the standard. And if they cannot reach this standard again, then there needs to be another conversation. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Tuesday edition of Club 904. Like I said, we will do some Q&A here at the end of the program. But first, we're going to hear from Johnny Venerable of PHNX. This conversation was recorded this morning, so a little bit of time traveling, but trust me when I say, if you guys have been locked in on Club 904 for the last 10 weeks, this is one of the best interviews, best analysts that we've had on, and it'll really give you some insight into not just where the Cardinals are from a roster development standpoint, but this matchup in particular. DJ Dell, Danny, Hef, Ether Dark, appreciate all you guys hanging out with us. We'll get to your questions and more coming up, but first, Johnny Venerable on the other side here on Club 904.
Welcome inside the Armor Guard exterior and gutter helmet showroom. There's a lot going on, like glass exteriors, replacement windows. And down there we have the retractable screens and awnings, plus hurricane protection. Let's talk more about those gutters. And to do that, we bring in Kevin. He's the owner, he's the expert. Why Gutter Helmet?
Well, Gutter Helmet is truly the only maintenance-free product. It lets the trash and debris go on the ground. The water wraps around and goes inside. Unlike filters, they sit on top of the gutters, and the trash and debris build up on top of filters, which requires maintenance. With Gutter Helmet, we're going to keep you off the ladder, the most dangerous thing in your garage. With Gutter Helmet, you'll never clean your gutters again. So get off the ladder and put on the helmet. Gutter Helmet.
Get a free estimate at gutterhelmetofnorthflorida.com. You can also call 904-762-7779 or visit the showroom on St. John's Bluff Road in Jacksonville.
Empower a future, inspire a dream. It's a bold but simple mission for the Jacksonville Police Athletic League known as JaxPal. Help the next generation of kids in Jacksonville shape a brighter future. Their after-school programs, teenage leadership programs. There's community outreach.
It's been just an awesome opportunity to be out here with my colleagues and do something good for the community. It's really been an interesting opportunity to just see everybody work together in a way that we don't normally in the office.
And there's sports. There are also ways you can help the next generation with a donation of any kind. Just visit jaxpal.org to get more information. Empower a future, inspire a dream with JaxPal.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, you can get a free Connecticut reverse osmosis system with the purchase of a Connecticut Premier Softener. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter First Coast on your team.
Sun's out, suits out. That's right, it's summertime in Florida, which means it's time to say goodbye to bulking season and hello to shredding season. But if you're like me, you're having a hard time sculpting and shaping those final pounds. That is until I came and saw my friends over at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Right now, everyone is hopping on the Evolve X train, and the only destination is finding your perfect summer body. The technology uses electrical muscle stimulation and radio frequency energy to cause your muscles to contract, all while heating up those deep layers of your skin and tissue to produce collagen and reduce fat. It's like doing 1,000 sit-ups in 30 minutes. No pain, no needles, just results, right?
That's right.
So leave those winter layers back at the station and come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
Back into a Tuesday edition of Club 904. I told you guys would be time traveling. We'd be location traveling today. So I am now in my office at the University of North Florida. This is 2 hours prior to us being live at 1 o'clock Eastern from the Action Sports Jack studios. But it's for good reason, folks, because if we're going to talk Arizona Cardinals, we need to have this guy involved in the conversation. Johnny Venerable of PHNX Cardinals. No one covers the Cardinals like him and Bo Brack. You get them each and every day over on the PHNX channels. And so we're excited to bring Johnny into Club 904 for his debut. And Johnny, as we just talked about off camera, welcome once more to the club of misery that Jaguar fans have often found themselves in. But hey, nobody better to talk about in terms of where does an organization go from here than the Jags and the Cardinals, who kind of find themselves in that territory quite often. Right, sir?
Yeah, you guys are living right this year. Of course, we're still slumming it. And I think we thought we'd probably have mirroring seasons. I think the Cardinals' full expectations, Vegas over-under was 8.5 wins, and they are far from that. And you've been a part of a lot of lost seasons. Like, that's what Cardinal fans are experiencing 110% this year, is the season that, in a make or break year for Kyler Murray and Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenford, everything has gone wrong. So they've got 7 games to really kind of turn it around as it relates to the optics in January. But I mean, like, injuries have played a part in it, but poor coaching. I mean, just a combination of errors, gaffes. I mean, they really have never recovered from that DeMercado goal line fumble, which is crazy. But, on the flip side, Jacksonville's playing good football. I mean, you're taking advantage of, an AFC South that's up and down, and a head coach that's, reinvigorated their offense, and Trevor Lawrence. So it's fun to see. It'll be a fun matchup on Sunday.
And we did get a DeMercado injury update earlier this morning, so we'll circle back to that a little bit later in this conversation. But I do want to start at the beginning. The optimism was off the charts. Certainly Marvin Harrison Jr. entering year number 2 after a up and down rookie campaign. Kyler Murray, healthy, expected to contribute in a big way to that Arizona Cardinals team that also would be predicated on their defense. After the 2-0 start, where have things kind of gone awry?
They've collapsed. I mean, I don't know how to phrase it any other way. They're 3-8 at the recording of this podcast, and they're not going to be a favorite in a game moving forward. And we feel pretty confident. Like, they soft bench Kyler Murray for Jacoby Brissett. That happened. He's on injured reserve, and what I believe is fully healthy and preparing for his next venture. That's not going to be with this franchise. They are going to try to deal him this offseason. Jacoby Brissett's played well. But like Jacoby Brissett as your default starter before Thanksgiving, it's not what anybody would have signed up for. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, has shown flashes, but again, there's been inconsistencies there. There's been drops. The cohesiveness or lack thereof with offensive coordinator Drew Petzing has left a lot of people frustrated. A lot of people assumed that they were going to move off of Petzing last January. They did not. They really opted to run this entire offense back, and it has bit him. James Conner going out week 3 did not help. A major regression for this team has been the offensive line, and it is the exact same unit with better depth than the team that, they fielded the last 2 years, which has been you could argue top 5, top 10 unit in the NFL. They've been top 5 in rushing in 2023, 2024. They lost their offensive line coach, Clayton Adams, who has since gone to Dallas and has been phenomenal with the likes of Javonte Williams, overachieving with Brian Schottenheimer. So I think if you pinpoint what has gone wrong with this team, like, it started in the offseason. They lost what now is assumed to be a top 5 offensive line coach in the NFL. They have not recovered. They cannot run the football at all. Like, DeMercado is going to be out this weekend with an ankle. But even before that, like Trey Benson, James Conner, it did not look good. And then their pass protection has struggled. And with somebody like Jacoby Brissett, like that's a real problem. Up until recently, they had been averaging like 4 or 5 sacks allowed per game in Jacoby Brissett's handful of starts. So the word for this season is erosion. This is an eroding team in what should be a blossoming 3rd year of a rebuild.
Right, exactly. And I'm glad you hit the rushing stats, Johnny, because for me, in preparing both for this conversation, some of the other Jaguars programs I'm a part of, going from 24th in rushing going from 5th in rushing to 24th in rushing.
Right.
That is where I think so much of the root of these offensive woes can be traced to. Mm-hmm. And when you take out the dual threat ability of Kyler Murray, at some point in time, Jacoby Brissett's going to lose that shine, because if he doesn't have that capable run game and their offense is one-dimensional, then that's kind of where you find yourself, at least in my estimation. Is that an accurate assessment kind of where things have gone the last 2-3 weeks since the soft benching of Kyler Murray?
Yeah, 100%. And make sure I make this clear as well. Like, they weren't running it well when Kyler was in the lineup, but he would give them that element. They traded Kyler Murray's escapability and threat of running for Jacoby Brissett's ability to drive the ball downfield. And you can make an argument it's been worth it. It's not been worth it. I mean, the Jacoby Brissett's been a revelation in terms of like garbage time yards. Like he had 452 yards passing, set an NFL record in a game they lost by 20 plus points. Here's my thought process, because this is a polarizing topic with Cardinal fans. I don't think Kyler Murray makes much of a difference given the infrastructure of this team, like crumbling at the seams. Like, Kyler Murray's a good player. I think he needs some things to go right around him, and they were clearly unhappy with how the passing game was going. Like, you've seen, like Trey McBride, Michael Wilson this past week, Marv at times, they've benefited from Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball downfield, right? Like, I think it's a mixed bag with the fact that the offensive line is not performing. And then, we're going to talk about it. I'm sure the defense has been just atrocious in the division the last 2 weeks. So again, it's not a knock on Kyler. Kyler's never been one to like single-handedly carry a team, right? Like, he's a really good complementary piece, I think, when things are going well and he can make a defense pay. This team this year, for whatever reason, is not gelling in any, stretch of the imagination, and Kyler Murray or not, like they're losing because the coaching is not up to snuff in 2025.
So let's flip this conversation. We'll start offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals. Then we'll go to the defense.
Sure.
Where does Jacksonville, in your estimation, match up, if only based off of what we saw last week, but also what we've seen in some of Jacksonville's losses too, when it comes to the deficiencies along the offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals?
Yeah, like I think Bo mentioned on our show earlier this week, like Jacksonville is a terrible matchup for the Cardinals right now, given the fact that they have a robust pass rush. They've got an aggressive defense that just made Justin Herbert really uncomfortable. And I think like the Cardinals were able to kind of mitigate pressure against San Francisco because Robert Saleh, even though he did a tremendous job scheming that game, like they have no players left. Like that's not the case for Jacksonville. Their line of scrimmage on the defensive line, I think, is going to give the Cardinals problems. Like Jonah Williams has been awful in and out of the lineup. Kelvin Beacham's hurt now. They could be starting undrafted free agent Josh Fryer at right tackle, who's an Ohio State alum. He's a nice developmental guy, but he has no business starting in 2025. So that's a real problem. And then you couple that with the fact that like Marvin Harrison Jr., had appendicitis, had surgery last Monday. Is he going to play? I think it's a stretch to play. I think it's probably more likely he comes back after this game. That's a coup for Jacksonville. Like, say what you want about Marvin. Like, he was playing well before his injury. So it's like, okay, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, maybe some Greg Dortch. Like, those are odds that I think a lot of teams would take. And I like those players, but, they envision Marvin Harrison Jr. to be the number one wide receiver. They need him. They needed him on Sunday, even with Michael Wilson playing well. So, and then you couple all of that with the fact that they can't run the ball and they're down to, right, I think conservatively, like 4th and 5th string running backs. It'll be probably Bam Knight and a little Michael Carter, and we'll see who they bring up from the practice squad, or that they may have to sign somebody. I thought it was a mistake, Mia, like at the deadline, knowing how this team wants to operate and run the football. Like, they should have really given up like a throwaway 6 to get a running back in here to kind of just finish the season. Like, you can't operate this way with like no depth at that position. It's unfortunate that Trey Benson got hurt right after James Conner, but that should have been a telltale sign. Like, he tore his meniscus. He's not returned from injured reserve. I think he'll come back at some point, but that has been their undoing. Like, Jacoby Brissett throwing 57 times is ridiculous.
Hey, but it also was an NFL record, 47 completions.
Yeah.
On the same day, Johnny, that the Jacksonville Jaguars ran the ball 47 times, which was a league best in the 2025 campaign.
I'm sure the Cardinals would take the latter there.
Right. And so that's where I look at this matchup, and this Jaguars defense, even prior to Anthony Campanelli arriving, has always prided itself in stop the run so we can have fun, taking away the run. And that is something they even did last year, largely under Ryan Nielsen. My biggest concern on the Jaguars defensive side of things, Johnny, is this idea of defending the flat. I even joked with several players in the Jaguars locker room about it last week, because between Brock Bowers and Nico Collins in back-to-back weeks, leaking out to that right flank, that is where teams were having a lot of success. I was impressed this past week against the Chargers. They go to a predominantly zone cover 4, cover 3 looks with Jarian Jones in the slot, and he matched word for word, pound for pound with Lad McConkey and anything between the linebacker and the perimeter. And then they let those two corners just operate on islands onto themselves. And that was even with Greg Newsome going down. And so I say all that to say, I am still concerned about Trey McBride. I am still concerned with how the Drew Petzing and company could employ that tight end, who should be noted, 2 receiving touchdowns from Kyler Murray and how many from Jacoby Brissett in limited action?
I think it's 6 in like
Just
5
saying.
games.
Yeah,
like
just saying.
I think the term like spamming the football gets overused in like NFL fandom. He's being spammed the football. He has 94 targets in the NFL this year. That's second. I'm guessing that's second to Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have to look that up. But he's a tight end. I mean, it's absurd. I think he's averaging as many fantasy points other than like six wideouts in the NFL. Like he should be a first team All-Pro. He is their best player. He is their most competitive player. And he is a matchup nightmare. And so I think, putting him out in the flat, he's a very physical player. He dominated San Francisco when that game was close in the second quarter. That he's a problem for everybody. But you can, conservatively, you could try to double cover him, and you could say, beat us with Michael Wilson, which he's very capable, 185 yards this past week. Beat us with Greg Dortch and Xavier Weaver, undrafted kid out of Colorado in his second year. Like that's the game plan this year. It's like, okay, we're going to give you maybe Michael Carter, Bam Knight underneath if you want it. We're going to give you your third and fourth wide receivers on a depth chart that's got no Marvin Harrison Jr. I would assume, don't let Trey McBride beat us. I think is the mentality for Jacksonville. How could it not be?
Yeah, Michael Carter and Bam Knight. I feel like we're talking 2023 Jets here, which, hey, listen, I think they won more games than they may win this year, but I digress. Let's flip it on over to the defensive side of the ball for the Arizona Cardinals. A familiar face for many here in Duval who are listening to this podcast right now, Johnny Venerable and Calais Campbell. A lot of folks here in Jacksonville were opining that perhaps Calais could be available on the open market if Arizona's season continued down the path that it has continued down. Yeah. But of course, he is not dealt at the trade deadline. He also has more sacks than every individual pass rusher on the Jaguars roster right now at 38, 39 years old. And so a shout out to Calais and his swan song, but why has that production not led to defensive success? I know that's one player, but I know he's not alone with Josh Sweat also not having the worst season either in 2025.
Yeah, this is the biggest problem for Jonathan Gannon. I think you can sell Kyler, it didn't work out, right? And he wasn't our guy. And James Conner's hurt, and Tip Ryman's hurt, and Marv's having surgery. And those are legitimate excuses. We made a bad hire, at coordinator, and we lost our offensive line coach. I'll buy that. Defensively, no excuses. They've got Walter Nolan the last, 3 games looks like the best defensive tackle in this draft class. He's a blue chip building block that they were gifted at pick 16. Darius Robinson was a first round pick last year. It has not worked out. You feel terrible for him. He lost his mother last year. We've had him on our show. It's just taking him a long time to get going, but he was a first round pick. Then you've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, who's on pace for 10 sacks, Josh Sweat, who's been a revelation coming from Philadelphia. Sweat had his best season with Gannon. I think, en route to the Super Bowl when they lost to Kansas City, he had 11 sacks. That was a career high. He's on pace for 15 this year. So he's been great. Their defensive line should be much better. I think, it dominated Dallas on Monday Night Football, and then against 2 elite coaching staffs in Seattle and San Francisco, it got exposed. I think that's been the toughest part, Mia, for Cardinal fans to come to grips with. It's I think this coaching staff can hang outside of their division. Gannon's 3-13 against the NFC West. So I actually think the defensive line is going to perform better this week. Trevor Lawrence susceptible to pressure and can make some mistakes. They lost Mack Wilson Sr., who's a nice, off-ball linebacker. And so Cody Simon, who's a 4th rounder out of Ohio State, who's capable, is going to start for them. But really outside of that, everybody's been healthy. We'll see if Will Johnson, who was a second round gift. I mean, they've had a really good draft this year. We'll see if he plays. He's had a hip corner, so they shut him down for about 2 weeks. But when he plays, he's their best corner, and they've got a lot of good defensive backs. So the defense, I think, is one of the biggest disappointments this year. They're not taking the football away. They're dropping interceptions. They dropped 3 Brock Purdy picks last week, which was gross to see in person. But yeah, I would say the reason why I feel like this game has a chance to be competitive and close is I don't think we're going to get another sieve of a defensive effort this week.
Yeah, and that defensive front, I mean, just hearing those stats that I knew were off the charts, if only for those four guys in the front. Yeah, that's a little concerning for a Jaguars offensive line that, well, yes, they were able to allow just 2 pressures and 0 sacks against the Chargers this past weekend against, I don't want to say that Bud Dupree and Khalil Mack are on the 16th green, but we're approaching the back 9 at the very, that's like being kind and conservative there.
Yeah.
And so that's where knowing what Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, and even 1 week prior, the likes of, outside of even Max Crosby, some of the journeymen along that Raiders defensive front, what they were able to do against the Jaguars offensive line that didn't play poorly in Las Vegas, but it wasn't the same output that we saw in Jacksonville this past Sunday. And so that's where hearing what that defensive front can do, that's where I might even say to Cardinals fans, like, hey, if you can at least get after the quarterback, you will give yourself a chance. My question for you would be, obviously other offenses have had to counter that defensive line. And so have they opted for a quick passing game? What's kind of been the counter to knowing that they can get pressure up front?
Yeah, they've gotten the ball out quickly. When they've lost to the likes of Mac Jones this year, it's 2 seconds, boom, get the ball out. The Cardinals have not tackled particularly well this past month. They've been one of the worst PFF tackling teams, coincidentally, in their division, right? I will say against Seattle, Jacoby Brissett had 2 sack fumbles for touchdowns, and then that game, got out of reach. Jonathan Gannon said something interesting. He says a lot of interesting stuff, but he said something interesting in his presser this week. I think when you look at the last 2 games, if you're a Jaguar fan, of things getting out of hand, Gannon says, I will never be afraid to get blown out, because basically he's doing everything he can to win the game. They have onside kicked in the second half the last 2 weeks, I think in the third quarter, multiple times. So you're giving the opposing team the ball on your own 45, right, or whatever it is. That, I think that played a part in it. Optics wise, if he wasn't playing that way, I'm not saying that it would have been 1 possession games, the scores would not look like they are. And I just thought that was interesting. Clearly he's got phenomenal job security. I don't think he's going to go anywhere after this year, but for an NFL coach to come out and say hey, we feel comfortable doing this. I don't care if we get blown out. It is interesting for another fan base to be how are they giving up 40 points per game? Well, if you watch the game, it's pretty evident that things got out of hand, and they were just, it's like they were playing my 10-year-old Madden, just onside kick in the second half.
And just allowing them to walk down the field after they recover said onside kick. Because it's interesting, because again, there is talent on that defense, especially if Will Johnson does play. Yeah. Is there an Achilles heel in the secondary outside of that linebacker second tier, knowing that it's a little bit banged up, or the teams have really gone after?
I think getting the ball out quickly, open space for the middle of the defense, Cody Simon, who again is not Mac Wilson Sr. yet. The fact that, I love Budda Baker, has not played particularly well this year. They don't have impact plays from their safeties. Actually, I think their most athletic safety is Taylor Demerson, who was a 4th-round pick last year, who I think leads the team in interceptions. He was out against San Francisco with an ankle. That's a low-key injury to watch. He's got a lot of versatility, allows Jalen Thompson to move up into the box, or Budda, and he can kind of play center field. Jonathan Gannon is historically a DB savant. And so at times that has been a good unit. It was not good the last 2 weeks. They're very much a Jekyll and Hyde unit. And I think for Jacksonville, having to travel across country, you're not going to have a ton of fans in Arizona, right? This is an opportunity for the Cardinals to get right and play a competitive game. They have PTSD playing in the NFC West. Look at all their games outside of the NFC West. Competitive, should have beaten Indy, should have beaten the Packers.
Tennessee.
Nightmare loss against the Titans that they were up, never should have happened. The West is a different story. So I think it will be competitive. Vegas does. It's a 2.5 point spread. I think like the Jaguars' biggest coup is like the Cardinals offense just right now. You just don't know what you're getting. And I think like if you score 24 points in this game, I think that's good enough to get a victory.
Hey, let's hope, because that's what we said when the Jaguars headed into Houston. Johnny, leave us with this, because as you noted, it feels like Jonathan Gannon is taking these chances because he knows he has job security. Yeah. You mentioned the last 2 draft classes for Monty Ossenfort. That's where I just look at this situation, and Kyler becomes the scapegoat, and both of those gentlemen retain their jobs, and you just hope for a different result next year with what, a rookie quarterback, or with Jacoby Brissett under center?
It's going to be a fun offseason. I have no idea. Here's what I know. They got reassurance after they got blown out by San Francisco. Like, you guys are good. Jonathan Gannon, you're good. We're just going to chalk this up as a lost season. And we're going to move into the off season. Let's try to finish the season on a high note. Now, they still have 7 games to play. Like, if they get blown out every week and they lose out, like, we're having a different conversation, I think, in January. I don't expect that. I think they're going to win some games down the stretch. Kyler Murray's a scapegoat is a popular term here locally. I think that's very much on the table. They're going to try to trade him, and like given like the lapse in quality options in the free agent market, maybe this draft class, I would be hard pressed to say like they're not going to find a trade partner. I think somebody, Atlanta now, do they enter the fold? Minnesota, Pittsburgh, the Jets. Like, you're telling me like Kyler Murray's deal is very reasonable. It's got basically 1 year left of guarantees. The Cardinals are going to eat some of that money. And then it's movable in 2027 and 2028. You have option years if you want to keep him. You're telling me somebody wouldn't throw a 3rd round pick or, a couple
minimum
2 picks for Kyler Murray. He's got a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. I mean, teams are starting Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor. JJ McCarthy's been terrible. So like the Cardinals, I think, are going to net a draft pick, and they're going to be like, oh no, now what do we do? So it'll be interesting. I think they part with Drew Petzing. Like, Gannon and Ossenfort got 5-year deals. The coordinator's got 3-year deals. So his deal expires in January. So I think it's just, I don't think they're going to make a big hoopla about it. Gannon loves his coaches. He hasn't fired anybody throughout the course of the season, much to fans' dismay. It's like, do something, fire somebody. Nope, they're not doing that. I think they're just going to let Drew Petzing walk in January. And then I think it becomes very, very apparent that there's a sense of urgency to get a Brian Daboll who will have options, a Kevin Stefanski, who we assume will be fired, like who has a relationship with Jonathan Gannon, get one of those people to come in here and, depending on where they draft, find a quarterback and help us fix this situation. Like it's a very tumultuous time here with all the moving parts. It's interesting, but times are tough.
I will send you off with this, Johnny. At least Trent Baalke is not your general manager. With all due respect to Monty Ossenfort, at least you are not Trent Baalke. 6-4 for Jacksonville, and so the vibes are high here. I can say that. Let's hope they continue to stay high as the Jaguars travel to face the Cardinals this weekend. Johnny Venerable, let the folks know, where can they catch you and Bo on PHNX?
Every day, Mountain Time, Arizona time, 4:30 live show, the #1 Arizona Cardinal podcast going. We appreciate everybody had a monster year, and it should be an interesting off season. We got 7 more weeks, and subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube.
Love it. Awesome. And make sure you guys can also sign up online if you want to be one of the PHNX diehards, right?
Correct. Yeah. And then join our supporters club on YouTube as well. #1 in supporters for All City, the growing All City network, doing some phenomenal stuff. So feel very fortunate, and feel fortunate to be able to join today, Mia. Thank you.
Amen on all fronts, Johnny. Appreciate you hopping on. Club 904 continues right after this.
Welcome inside the Armor Guard exterior and gutter helmet showroom. There's a lot going on, like glass exteriors, replacement windows, and down there we have the retractable screens and awnings, plus hurricane protection. Let's talk more about those gutters, and to do that, we bring in Kevin. He's the owner, he's the expert. Why Gutter Helmet?
Well, Gutter Helmet's truly the only maintenance-free product. It lets the trash and debris go on the ground. The water wraps around and goes inside. Unlike filters, they sit on top of the gutters, and the trash and debris build up on top of filters, which requires maintenance. With Gutter Helmet, we're going to keep you off the ladder, the most dangerous thing in your garage. With Gutter Helmet, you'll never clean your gutters again. So get off the ladder and put on the helmet. Gutter Helmet.
Get a free estimate at gutterhelmetofnorthflorida.com. You can also call 904-762-7779 or visit the showroom on St. John's Bluff Road in Jacksonville.
Empower a future, inspire a dream. It's a bold but simple mission for the Jacksonville Police Athletic League known as JaxPal. Help the next generation of kids in Jacksonville shape a brighter future. Their after-school programs, teenage leadership programs. There's community outreach.
This has been just an awesome opportunity to be out here with my colleagues and do something good for the community. It's really been an interesting opportunity to just see everybody work together in a way that we don't normally in the office.
And there's sports. There are also ways you can help the next generation with a donation of any kind. Just visit jaxpal.org to get more information. Empower a future, inspire a dream with JaxPal.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, you can get a free Connecticut reverse osmosis system with a purchase of a Connecticut Premier Softener. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter First Coast on your team.
There we go. Unmute that. Welcome back into a Tuesday edition of Club 904. Appreciate Johnny Venerable of PHNX Cardinals for joining us to break down Sunday's matchup between the Big Cats and those birds out in the desert. Not the Phoenix Cardinals. Okay, I've made enough Urban Meyer jokes for one episode. Appreciate everybody who's been hanging out with us for the full hour. In case you missed it, I did mention I'm going to be filling in for Brent here momentarily on Talent Talks on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel. So want to make sure we get on the air situated. Richard Miller standing by as our three outstanding representatives of the UNF Ospreys athletic department. So with that said, I'm going to hit 4 quick questions that you guys left in the chat. Then we're going to make way for Talent Talks. Let's start with this. Dan on YouTube loves hanging out with us there on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel. Asked if Logan Cook's mysterious injury that popped up on the injury report, was that an encouraging enough reason for Liam Cohen to choose not to punt? Logan Cook, Liam Cohen, Logan Cook, a lot of LCs there. Logan Cook did not punt for the first time in his career on Sunday, in case you missed it. Big zeros. It was also the first time the Jaguars have not punted in a game since 2010. No, Dan, to answer your question, I think that was simply the head coach believing in his identity, believing in his offensive operation, and trying to instill confidence in his quarterback that they could go out and convert on 4th down. Because outside of 1 or 2 of them where they turned the ball over on downs, like, they didn't have to even have a conversation of if Logan Cook should punt or not. And quite frankly, in both those situations, Cam Little probably hits a field goal from there as well. Ether Dark, any word on Jordan Lewis, Eric Murray coming back off of injury? Have not heard anything outside of what I've mentioned on the O'Brien NFL Notebook. Subscribers already know some of that intel regarding the neck injury that Jordan Lewis is dealing with Eric Murray being placed on the reserve injured list after returning from the bye week. That would mean that he is out a minimum of one more game. We will see if that is indeed the case because Brenton Strange was eligible. His 21-day window was open this past week, and he did not return for that first game right after he returned off IR. So curious to see how they slow roll it with Murray, especially with Rayon Lane looking pretty good out there on Sunday, and with Antonio Johnson coming up in run support and also looking more than capable. Robert, how has Walter Nolan looked, Johnny? I think Johnny Venerable did a great job of telling you, blue chip player that you can build around. Lord knows the Jaguars could use a couple more of those, and that's after a 35-6 win. The reality is that even watching the Raiders last night, watching Brock Bowers, watching Max Crosby, I couldn't help but say, man, on one of the worst teams in the NFL. You see those dudes. They are dudes. They are game changers, game wreckers. Hopefully the Jaguars are either able to develop some of those on the current roster or bring them in the years to come. And finally, our friend Dell, with regards to Jakobi Meyers and the potential for commanding a $20 million per year contract extension after he finishes this season with the Jaguars and then becomes a free agent. Dell said, quote, if we paid Kirk $18 million, I'd gladly pay Jakobi $20 million. Different regime. I get it. I think they need to see something from Brian Thomas Jr. here in the next few weeks. And if they see what they've seen over the last 2 weeks from Jakobi Meyers, then there may be enough pause for James Gladstone to say, if Trevor Lawrence has such great chemistry with number 3, we probably want to keep number 3 around, especially knowing that, well, yes, the Rams have a hit rate of day 2 wide receivers that is above league average. I don't know if you want to take that risk when you know that, again, Jakobi Meyers may not be a blue chip player, but he is a guy who you can consistently rely on. And those are few and far between in the National Football League. Again, Talent Talks is coming your way here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel. If you missed any of today's episode with Johnny Venerable, it'll be available on demand at the Action Sports Jacks YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. A special edition of Club 904 coming your way on Thursday. Our friend JP Acosta going to hop back in the club once more. Going to do a little breakdown, a little 1-2 step film breakdown of the Jaguars' run game success against the Los Angeles Chargers and what we could see going up against that Cardinals defensive front on Sunday. And